Opening credits. Bear No More. Werebear Shifter Paranormal Romance. By Selena Coffey. Auto-narrated using Google technology. Chapter 1. Destiny Rhodes thought that John was like nothing she had ever seen. The man was sexy beyond her wildest dreams, and he had this captivating manner about him that just screamed.
Censored.
There was a deep passion in everything that he did, every gesture, every roll of his eyes, and every grunt of his gruff voice. The man was rough around the edges, to say the least, and when he looked you in the eye, it was like he suddenly stepped into your soul and he was cracking you open. She thought he could crack her open anytime. She was just finishing up the last bit of her book tour, and her final stop was in her hometown of Phoenix, Arizona, at a Barnes & Noble. It was nice that she had sold enough printed copies of her books to even get to do a book tour. The in-person meet-and-greet book tours were becoming a thing of the past, she was afraid, and all of the authors were scared that it was going to hurt overall sales. It was all about branding. When your voracious readers got to meet you and ask you questions face-to-face, then you were able to build a friendship with them. It was one of her favorite parts about being an author, actually. It was a great way to sell more books as well, because not only did fans buy the new books, but they actually bought the older books for her to sign also. With the digital revolution well underway and taking over the world, the book tour was becoming a thing of the past. Now it was the blog tour, which Destiny didn't really know that much about, but she was willing to learn. She had actually set up a blog for herself a few years ago and began to write daily. At first, she wasn't sure she would have much to say for a daily blog, or even a weekly one, but she discovered that a lot of the questions that her fans emailed her on her mailing list were actually leading to great discussions and endless ideas for her blog posts. But she didn't know exactly how to go about setting up a blog tour. She had turned to her agent for help with that sort of thing, but they had basically told her to figure it out herself. That left her feeling really hopeless, and so she had been thrilled beyond belief when her editor brought up the idea of going on an actual bricks-and-mortar bookstore book tour. The book tours were always fun, and most of the fans were great. Of course, you did get the occasional nut job, but that came with the territory. Especially considering what she wrote about. Destiny prided herself on being the utmost authority on the supernatural in the country. She had just finished a series of books about shifters that had been immensely popular. Granted, she was not a New York Times best-selling author, but she wrote in a small niche area. However, she had dominated that niche for a number of years and became extremely famous among the supernatural crowd. She knew that shifters existed in the world. There had been insurmountable amounts of evidence of it, and she had read everything she could find about the subject before she even started writing. It was a subject that had consumed the last 3 years of her life. But with all of her research and interest, she had yet to meet a bona fide shifter in person. They were very rare, and the ones that did exist kept to themselves. Pretty much the only people who said they were shifters were loons and always proven to be frauds, unless it was on TV. Then it was a bunch of morons trying to make loons out of everybody else. So when she received the letter after a signing, which had been given to a bookstore employee to give to her, she was skeptical. However, when the letter informed her of some things about herself that only someone with supernatural powers could know, she knew that she had to meet this person. They were waiting around the corner, in a coffee shop. Destiny was very nervous to be meeting with them. The fact that some stranger knew so much about her was alarming. She had never told anyone that she had a twin sister who was in an institution. Destiny had actually gone to great lengths to bury this secret. It was possible with the internet that some superfan had figured out a loophole to get access to that information, but she really didn't see how. Her sister had been committed when they were both just 6 years old. When she entered the coffee shop and saw John sitting there, she immediately knew. It was the eyes that tipped her off. She had never seen eyes so deep before. They sucked you into them and left your entire world exposed, resulting in a helpless feeling that made you want to cling to the man and just do what he said. He had the eyes of a predator. She sat down cautiously in front of him, his eyes locked on her. He was an extremely attractive man, both in his athletic build and the aura he gave off. The level of confidence he exuded by just breathing was enough to make most people wet their pants. "Hello," Destiny said. John muttered a grunt, and then they sat in silence for several minutes. "So, how are you?" Destiny asked. "I'm a bear shifter." "Yourself?" Not so much." "That sucks for you then," John said. "Well, you wanted to speak to me about that? You said you had a problem that only I would be able to help you with?" "Well, your area of expertise is in shifters. I've read all of your books several times. They were very informative, but there was something that I did not find in them: how to cure the disease." "How to cure the disease?" "Yes. I wasn't always like this. I was once just an ordinary guy, and then I became this way." The waitress came over right then, and Destiny ordered herself a black coffee. She sat back in the chair, which was surprisingly comfy, and took a good look at John before she continued. "I've researched the shifter thing for a long time, and the one thing that keeps coming up about how to cure the disease is that the only way to reverse the curse is to kill the one that made you. Do you have any idea who infected you?" "Yeah, I do. I remember reading that in your books, but I thought there might be more than just that one way," John said, taking a long sip of his coffee. He took a flask out of his pocket, poured some vodka in the cup, and stirred it a bit before taking another sip. "Is it someone you know personally? What would be your issue with killing this person? I mean, if they attacked you, then they've attacked others, and they are a danger to society as a whole," Destiny said. "It's my ex-girlfriend Amy." "How did it happen?" "She attacked you?" "Well, that is one way to put it. Another way to put it is to say that she got too excited when she was playing my trumpet," John said. Destiny gave John a stunned look. "What did he just say?" What do you mean by playing your trumpet?" John smiled at her in a naughty way. He raised his eyebrows slowly and gave her a smirk. "You know?" Destiny sat upright in her chair. The waitress sat her coffee down in front of her, and she started to sip it. "Hey, can I borrow some of that vodka?" John handed her the flask. She dumped a few shots worth into the coffee, handed him back the flask, and started to sip away. "Okay, now when you say she got too excited, how excited are we talking about here?" John gave her a puzzled look. He didn't get it. Not exactly a deep thinker, this guy. Good thing he was pretty and tough. Destiny held her hands up about a ruler length apart. "Like this?" She held her thumb and index finger together about a centimeter apart. "Or like this?" John's eyes widened as the light bulb went off in his head. "Oh no. It was just a little nick. I barely felt it. But apparently it was enough to get the job done." Destiny sipped the hot coffee faster, desperately lapping up the vodka, allowing it all to burn her throat. "Yeah, it doesn't take much. Any bite at all will transmit the curse. Any idea how she got it?" "No. We broke up a few weeks later and I transformed about a week after that, on the first full moon after the incident." "Have you reached out to her about it?" "No, I broke up with her. After that, she wouldn't return any of my calls or see me." "Why did you break up?" "I just decided it was time to move on. I've never been a stay-in-one-place kind of guy, especially when it comes to women. I guess I used to be a pig, and now I'm a bear." "I didn't see that one coming," John said. "So, you aren't willing to kill this person?" "No, she is a sweet girl. I was the a-hole who broke her heart, and she didn't mean to make me a shifter." "But she never told you she was one, did she?" "She should have told you." John finished his coffee in one long gulp. Then he took a swig of his flask. "I know, but I think deep down I still have feelings for her." Destiny wasn't sure what to make of John. On one hand, he was this intense man who was also apparently a bear, but he was also kind of sweet, and didn't want to risk hurting the woman he still had feelings for. "So you came to me for help?" What about being a shifter do you not like? Why are you so desperate to be human again? Destiny asked. Because I've been killing people, and I'm thinking I should probably stop that. Destiny couldn't believe what she was hearing. The man was confessing to cold-blooded murder. You've killed people? Yeah, that's what bear shifters do. The urge to kill is overwhelming on a full moon. You don't even remember most of it, but then you wake up in the woods.
Censored.
And covered with someone else's blood. And there is the clothing. I can't tell you how many pairs of clothes I've ruined during the change. It's like the Incredible Hulk bursting out of his clothes. It's a bit of a nightmare. Why not get
Censored.
before the change happens? Because that's weird. I don't walk around the house.
Censored.
For no reason. That's for perverts and people from Texas. Destiny didn't know what to do at this point. The man needed to be chained up, so he wouldn't hurt anyone else. Well, from everything else I've read, you can't be cured of the change then. What? Why not? Well, once you have tasted human blood, then you will be cursed forever. There is no way to reverse it now. So not even killing your ex would help you. That sucks. So this was all a big waste of time? Well, no. I'm sure I can help you. You can't go on killing people. You have to start chaining yourself up. I've tried that. I have escaped every time. Well, maybe someone needs to put you inside of a cage. That way, even if you break the chains, then you still can't go anywhere. Look, I'm not some sort of a sideshow freak. I'm not an animal on display at the zoo. There is no way in hell I'm doing that. Destiny thought for a moment. She needed to find a way to help him, but she had been telling him the truth. From everything she had studied, there was no way for her to cure him of this curse. Unless there might be another way. I'm listening. There is a theory I remember hearing about a long time ago, but it hasn't been proven. It's crazy enough to work though. So it's worth a shot. Well, I'm out of options, so I'll try anything at this point. If you can find out who the original shifter on that bloodline is and kill them, then you can cure not only yourself, but everyone else that person has infected. John leaned in closer. He smelled of a sexy mix of musk and alcohol. Destiny felt her skin getting hotter. She wished this beast of a man would just ravage her and get it over with already. She was having trouble concentrating. How am I supposed to find that out? Well, you could talk to Amy. She might know. For all you know, it might be the person who directly made her. It had to start somewhere. So that begs the question, how did this person become a shifter? Well, according to legend, there was a group of cult followers. They worshipped dark magic, who were trying to cheat death and live forever. They believed they could do it by harboring the spirits of the most powerful predators alive: bears, wolves, cougars, panthers, etc., and they made a deal with a dark entity who granted them this power. They are called the Alphas. Their children are basically direct descendants of this order, and they are born shifters. But killing one won't be easy. They are a lot stronger than hybrids. John sat back and looked at her as if she were somewhat crazy. The whole thing sounded bizarre, and it didn't look like he was buying it. Okay, I'll try to talk to Amy again. Chapter 2. Destiny adjusted the binoculars and tried to focus in on John again. She had come along to do the Nancy Drew stakeout routine, without John knowing. If he didn't talk to Amy, and didn't convince her to help him, then they would have no chance of finding the alpha that was responsible for this bloodline. The question though was whether or not she wanted to change. If she and no telling how many other shifters were on this line, who were all killing innocents at night, and turning the survivors into other shifters, then it wouldn't be long before the whole thing would be like an epidemic. It had to be stopped. Destiny had heard of communities full of shifters, who were all on the same bloodline. It was rare to find shifters from different bloodlines together in the same area. Different packs were pretty much at war with each other, and it never ended well. Eventually one pack was driven out of the area. This didn't happen often though, because shifters like to keep a low profile. If the rest of the world ever really found out that they were real, and the idea was accepted into mainstream society, then the government would round them all up and do experiments on them. This would result in mass extermination. She had thought this might not be a bad thing, but she tried to remember that these people were victims themselves. It was not their fault that this had happened to them, and most were still good people, if you could get the shifter out of them. She watched as John knocked on the door. A few moments later, a sexy blonde girl opened up. She instantly looked
censored
and tried to slam the door in his face. He stepped forward, blocking the door with his foot. She tried harder to slam it, but he entered the doorway anyway. Destiny realized that she needed to hear what was being said. She got out of her car that was parked almost a block down the street and ran down the pavement, trying to keep her profile as low as she could. She stopped outside of the house and peered in through the open window of the one-story ranch. She could now clearly hear what was being said through the heated argument. "Just be quiet and listen to me," John said. "Don't tell me to be quiet. I can't believe the nerve you have showing up here. I don't want to see you ever again," Amy yelled. "Really? I'm just now starting to get that picture," John replied. He walked over to her liquor cabinet and opened a fifth of vodka. He sat down on the couch and started to drink. "Help yourself, why don't you?" Amy yelled. John looked at the bottle confused. "I already did." Amy rolled her eyes at his clueless nature. "You have 5 minutes and then I'm calling the cops to throw you out," Amy said. "The cops? You really want them to find out that a bear shifter can't throw her boyfriend out of her house, all by herself?" Amy looked like someone had slapped her in the face. "What did you say?" "I know, babe." Amy sat down on the chair across from the couch. "How do you know anything about that?" "Because you seem to have left me with a lovely parting gift, a sweet memento of our time together. You turned me into a flippin' bear," John said. "What? How did that happen?" Amy asked. "You kind of bit me, remember?" Amy took a second, but her face lit up as she remembered. "Oh my God. I'm so sorry," Amy said. "Yeah, it would have been nice to give me a little heads up." Amy looked flustered. "It's not the sort of thing you tell somebody. Would you have actually believed me if I had told you?" Amy asked. "Probably not, but if you had showed me, then I wouldn't have had a choice. You would have freaked out and either tried to kill me or gone to the authorities. Either way, we would have been over. And I really liked you. Well, we didn't last long after that anyway. Seems like kind of a moot point now. And I would not have freaked out. I would have been very cool." "With your temper? Please, you would have come back with your entire gun rack full of firepower." John took a big swig of the vodka. "Yeah, I guess you are right." "So what now?" I apologized. "What more do you want?" Amy asked. "Well, there may be a way to cure us both of our affliction." Amy leaned forward, curiosity painted on her face. "I'm listening." John told her about the alphas. "Do you know who made you a bear shifter?" John asked, handing the vodka to Amy. She took a swig and handed it back to him. "It was my ex, Albert Goldman. He told me after he made me that he was born that way. It has to be him." "You think he was telling the truth about that? Are you sure he is an alpha?" John asked. "I only have his word. I only know what he told me," Amy said. "Well, I need his address. Do you want to come with me?" John asked. "What? You are going there now?" "Well, I was thinking about waiting till after Christmas. Don't want to ruin the man's holiday cheer, but since that's not for another 6 months, I thought I'd get a move on it anyway. Why the hell not now? It just seems radical. He was a cheating, backstabbing a hole, but he was a good guy," Amy said. "Yeah, he sounds like a real prince." Amy glared at him. "You know what I mean." "Not really. The guy is turning people into shifters, which results in innocent people being killed, and others ending up like us. I'm not exactly a bleeding heart type of guy, but I want out of this game. Amy gave him the address, and John got up to leave. You don't want to come with me? John asked. No, I don't think I could. If these alphas are as strong as you say, then trying to kill one sounds like a suicide mission. So you have fun with that. All right, chicken. I'm out. John finished the bottle of vodka and threw it across the room and through the open window where Destiny was listening. The bottle hit her hard on the back of the head. A waterfall full of falling stars erupted in her vision, sending her staggering away from the house in the dark night. Her legs were wobbly, and she was having trouble deciding which direction was straight ahead. If only the people would stop moving the world around on her. She felt like she was in a magic 8-ball. So, what do you think? The voice came out of the dark, as her vision began to straighten. John grabbed her as she started to fall. Whoa, sounds like someone is hitting the bottle harder than me tonight, John said. Or in her case, the bottle actually hit her harder, she thought. So, I got an address. Are you coming? Do you think you should go there alone? Destiny asked. The words had barely formed when she suddenly felt the world going dark. She heard the faint sounds of John's voice saying, "Oh shit," before she blacked out. When she awoke, she was in her bedroom. She quickly realized she was on the bed. The room was mostly darkened, except for the small table lamp in the corner. Had she dreamed the whole thing? Had John and the bear shifter thing been just a figment of her imagination, from talking and thinking too much about this creepy subject? She started to get up, but the pain in her head amplified instantly, cracking almost intense enough to be audible. She winced, waited for the nausea to subside, and slowly sat up on the edge of the bed. She checked the clock, but she still didn't know how long she had been out. Well, good morning, sunshine. The voice came from her left, and she turned her head sharply, and the pain swirled around her, reinforcing how bad of a move that had just been. John stood there with a towel wrapped around his waist, coming out of the bathroom. He was still dripping wet, the water glistening on his lean, muscular, and beautifully tattooed body. The man was in immaculate shape, and she could not avert her eyes from the sexy six-pack he displayed. God, she wanted him so badly. What happened? Destiny asked. Looks like you bumped your head. Serves you right for eavesdropping. I wasn't eavesdropping. I was trying to listen to your conversation, without you knowing. That's totally different. I was doing fine, until some joker hit me with a vodka bottle. Oh, my bad. That looked like it hurt. John walked over to where his pile of clothes was sitting, dropped the towel, and began to put his clothes on. The sight of him, fully
censored,
shook Destiny instantly awake, clearing up the brain fog that was consuming her world. The man was hung like a horse. His shaft was long and perfectly shaped. She tried to close her eyes to not gawk at it, because she was feeling instantly dizzy, but she could not turn away. John didn't seem to care as he smiled at her. He pulled his jeans on over his main appendage, which was already at half-mast. He went commando, apparently. Somehow this did not surprise her. Don't be shy. You can check me out all you want. You wouldn't be human if you didn't, John said. Full of yourself much? Destiny asked. John grinned at her, as he walked slowly over to her. His pants still were not fastened or even zipped up. He leaned closely to her, and looked her intensely in the eyes. He leaned in, and
censored
her softly at first and then applying more pressure, practically consuming her,
censored
into his mouth. Destiny had no time to think, and she knew it was better that way. Too much thinking was bad for you at a time like this. That was why people drank, so they could make those bad decisions that made life memorable. John slowly undressed her. The coolness of the air conditioning in the house felt great on her
censored
skin as she lay back with her legs spread apart, waiting for him. John smiled and let his pants drop to the floor. Then he came to her. All aboard. Chapter 3. So what's the plan? Destiny asked. She and John were parked in her car outside of Albert's house. He lived in a quiet residential community in Tempe. It was not the sort of place you expected to find a psycho who was hell-bent on destroying as many lives as he possibly could. John turned to her and gave her a sexy look with his smoldering eyes. Destiny found herself blushing. He was so intense without even trying. It turned her on so badly. She had not been able to get the image from when they had made love earlier out of her mind. John had been forceful, yet gentle at all the right times, but he had been so dominant. She loved it that way, and it had been a long time since she had been with anyone who just took her that way. She found herself feeling so close to him, and she knew that she shouldn't. John wasn't the type of guy to be held down or committed to any woman, but she hoped maybe he was getting to that point, as bad boys often do when they hit their 30s. She had hopes anyway. Right now they had to focus on the mission at hand. "Well, I'm just going to go up to the door and knock," John said. "Okay, and tell him what?" "The truth." "Not at first. I thought we went over this already?" "I'm just making sure we are clear on the plan," Destiny replied. Truthfully, she had forgotten half of the details. He had explained them to her after their sweet love-making session, and her world had been a bit rocked at the time. She didn't remember anything for the half hour after that. It was similar to being in a trance-like state. John grabbed the clipboard and the documents. He also grabbed his fake glasses disguise and pulled on his button-up shirt. It even had sleeves. Destiny was so proud. He looked almost like a normal human. "I'm going to pretend to be a census taker, and then, when he tells me to
censored
off, I'm going to flash the piece at him and order him inside. Then I'm going to shoot the sucker." John grabbed the pistol last and placed the silencer on it. He tucked it into his pants and pulled the shirt down over it. The gun was very well hidden from view. Destiny had ordered the gun and the silencer a long time ago. With all of her research into all things paranormal, somehow she knew that she would need to use this eventually. She had double-checked the gun to make sure that the bullets had been replaced with silver ones. It took introducing silver into the bloodstream to kill a shifter. That was the only way. John
censored
her quickly and then exited the car. John looked around the neighborhood cautiously. He thought that he had done a pretty good job of blending in with the surroundings and pretending to be a yuppied-up idiot census taker. He even tried to fake a moronic, wussy smile to authenticate the look. He deserved an Oscar for his efforts as far as he was concerned. He glanced back at Destiny in the car. She was nervous as a metal cat in a lightning storm, but she was holding it together. He admired the fact that this girl had some guts. She was scared witless and he knew it, but she was still going right along like a trooper. That was more than he could say for his insignificant ex, Amy. He still didn't trust that one. She was wily and malicious deep down, he thought. There was something about the way she had so gallantly sent him on what might be a fool's mission. Something about it felt off to him, and if he had been fully trusting his instincts right then, he might have turned around and formulated a new plan, but here he was. He needed to take this guy out. If he was who Amy said he was, then he was too dangerous to be left alive. Although John did feel a bit sorry for the guy. He had only been a shifter for a few months. He couldn't imagine being born this way. It was awful losing all control when the shift happened, and the overwhelming feelings of bloodlust that you just plain could not ignore. Your own rational thoughts no longer came into play there. It was just you and the beast always won. He came to Albert's door and rang the bell. A second later, a man in his late 60s answered the door. He was a large man, still strong and athletic-looking even at his age. He seemed like a man who was much younger, but only his silver hair and his aged eyes gave him away. "Yes, can I help you?" John smiled his phoniest nice guy smile. "Yes, I'm John. I'm with the U.S. Census. Would you mind if I took just a few minutes of your time to ask you some basic questions?" Albert smiled back, but John could see the dread hiding behind his eyes as he prepared to speak. "I'm sorry, but I'm really not feeling well. Perhaps you could come back another time?" Albert's voice sounded raspy, and he let out a phony cough. John couldn't help rolling his eyes. He had seen better acting on Days of Our Lives. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but this will only take a minute. John produced the gun from his back and held it inches from Albert's belly, carefully shielding the gun with his own body. The look on Albert's face was priceless, and it was interesting to watch it change in a flash from the look of an older sickly man to the face of a tyrant. John could see the rage and the anger ricochet in the callous gaze. "You son of a," Albert began. John pressed the gun tighter against his belly. "Do you want a belly full of silver bullets? No? Then let me inside right now." Albert slowly began retreating back inside, raising his hands as he did so. John elbowed the door shut behind him. He took a second to admire how much nicer the house looked inside than it did outside. He hated to get blood everywhere, but it was unavoidable today. "Okay. What do you want?" "I don't have any money," Albert said. "Oh, I doubt that, but I don't want your stinkin' money. I want my life back." "What are you talking about?" "I want to be human again. This damn curse, I want it gone." "Oh, so you are one of us. I thought for a minute you might just be a hunter. Either that or some fool who somehow stumbled onto me, and what I am, and decided to try to take me for a ride. That's happened more times than you would believe. No matter how careful you are, occasionally some moron marathon watches a few seasons of The Walking Dead on Netflix and decides that they are fighting evil and miraculously stumbles onto you. That has never ended well for any of them, I'm afraid. So you admit that you are an alpha. I've never been one for labels, but I was born a creature of the dark. I'm rather proud of that. I am curious to know how you figured out who I am." "Amy Peters told me," John said. He felt weird about selling Amy out, but this guy was going to be dead in a minute, so it didn't really matter. The old man began to laugh. "What's so funny?" John asked. "Amy told you that I'm an alpha? Well, I guess it takes one to know one." "What?" John asked. "Fool, Amy is an alpha too." "You are lying." "Maybe so, but that doesn't matter right now anyway. Are you going to shoot me down in a blaze of gunfire or not?" John froze for a second, and that was almost too long. Albert leapt at him, plowing into him and knocking the gun from his pocket, throwing John against the wall. The old man was on him in an instant, and he was freakishly strong. John twisted in his grasp as Albert's claws reached around his throat, squeezing hard, cutting off his air supply. He had not yet tested his new abilities when it came to how long he could hold his breath without passing out. That was the last thing he wanted to happen in the same room as this guy. He struggled as hard as he could to get free of Albert's grasp, but the old man was just too strong. He hated to do it, but he was going to have to resort to some old-school prison fight maneuvers that he had learned in, well, prison. He drove his knee hard into the old man's crotch. He heard and felt something go crunch. It was pretty obvious that the man was only half the man he used to be right now, but he was still coming at John. His strength intensified with his rage as he lifted John up in the air by his throat. John poked both fingers into the man's eyes. Albert screamed in pain and dropped him as he covered his eyes. John grabbed Albert's shoulders and jumped, driving his knee into Albert's crotch again. And again. And again. The old man's eyes looked like they were going to fall out as he wailed in pain, his voice getting higher and almost girl-like as John started to alternate knees, driving them into his crotch. He was starting to enjoy this, and he was wondering how many more times it would take to bust the other nut. Finally, Albert collapsed, grabbing his crotch. John leapt across the room, rolling, and picked up the gun, letting his momentum carry him until he was in a combat position on one knee, with the gun carefully aimed at Albert, ready to shoot. Albert was getting up. His whole body appeared on the verge of collapse, and there was a huge red spot in the crotch of his pants. He ran at John, and John fired 6 shots. The gun let out a whoosh of air with each one, followed by a faint popping sound as the bullets entered Albert's.
Censored.
Albert staggered around for a few minutes, and then collapsed on the floor. John watched as the old man's body shriveled and shrank, adding another 50 years to his life. He guessed that being an original shifter really slowed down the aging process. He tucked the gun away, grabbed his clipboard and left Albert's place. Destiny was waiting for him in the car. She appeared white as a sheet upon seeing his appearance. He checked himself in the mirror in the car, and he did look a bit shaken up, hair messy and face clammy with sweat. It was all in a day's work. Now it was time to take care of that cow, Amy. Chapter 4. They pulled up down the street from Amy's house. The street was quiet under the dark sky. Even at 9 at night, the temperature was still a sweltering 93 degrees. Welcome to Arizona, where they invented hot summer nights. Destiny wouldn't have changed it for the world though. She unbuttoned a couple of buttons on the top of her blouse, allowing the air conditioning to move against her moist, sweaty skin. You ready to go again? I appreciate the enthusiasm, but now is not the time, sweetie, John said. Destiny smirked at him. Very funny. It's hot as hell out. Stay in the car. This should only take a second, John said, checking the bullets to make sure he had fully reloaded the gun with silver bullets. Are you sure you want to do this? How do you know Albert wasn't lying? I don't. Then how do you know you have to do this? I don't. Great, you have certainly thought all of this through very well, Destiny said. John leaned over and
censored
her hard on the mouth. It will be fine. It's something I have to do. Destiny waited while John walked across the street, and then followed the sidewalk to Amy's house. She picked up her binoculars and watched intently. She wanted to make sure that Amy opened the door, and that she wasn't wise to the fact that John was going to kill her. They had to take her by surprise. John's plan was to simply tell her how everything had gone with Albert, and to make sure that she was okay. He was going to pretend that he had reverted from being a shifter back to his normal self after he killed Albert, although he said he knew immediately after Albert died that nothing had changed. The old man had been telling the truth about being responsible for the bloodline that had drafted John into it. But what if Amy was the alpha? Would this really be it? Or was this whole thing just a pipe dream, based on a very vague old urban legend that they had just proven to be false? She took a sip of her Coke. She opened up the flask from her glove compartment and poured some rum into it, let it mix a few seconds and took a long drink of it. She smiled as it went down. That was the stuff. She needed this badly, to take the edge off everything that was going down. She watched John approach the door to Amy's house. He pressed the doorbell and waited. He waited several seconds, but Amy did not appear. He pressed the doorbell again, and continued to wait. Destiny could sense his growing impatience, and she knew what happened when John got impatient. John twisted the doorknob, breaking it off in his hand, and pushed the door open to the darkened house. He walked inside and Destiny felt her breath speed up. She was getting very nervous for his safety. With all of the research she had done on the world of the paranormal, and most recently shifters, she had never known that the world could be this terrifying. She was worried about John. They had only known each other a short while, and they had become very close during that time. She didn't know how John really felt about her, because he kept his feelings locked away in a vault deep inside of himself. She wondered if she would ever see the day where she would have access to that vault, and open up some of those feelings he buried away. John came out of the house a few minutes later. He walked slowly towards the car. As he came closer, she could see a look of utter disappointment and frustration on his face. Something was wrong. Deep down she already knew what it was. John got in the car, slamming the door without meaning to. She's gone. Shit. Yep. She sent me on that wild goose chase and kept me distracted while she packed up and left town. I'm sorry. Any idea where she might go? Who knows? She could be on a plane, to anywhere. It might take years to find her if I ever do. Destiny and John sat silently still for a few minutes. She wanted to comfort him in some way, but she knew that nothing she could say right now would make any of this any better. He was not going to get rid of this curse anytime soon. She felt sorry for him, but if she really thought about it, then she knew that deep down she was actually happy about the situation. She was very attracted to the fact that John was a bear shifter. There was something so primal and so sexy about a man who could turn into an actual monster. He had a true beast locked away deep inside of him. He could unleash this beast anytime he wanted to, eventually. It did take a long time to perfect this ability, but with her guidance, she might be able to teach him how to do this. She knew that it was insipid for her to be thinking about any of this. John was a monster, and he needed to be cured. He was unable to keep from killing innocent people, and would likely go on killing people until he was either killed or cured. It was something that had to be dealt with. She had to help him get better. She realized that deep down one of the main reasons she loved that John was a bear shifter was because he needed her. He was lost when it came to this, and she was an expert on the subject, or as close as a mortal could be without becoming a shifter as well. Does she have any family anywhere? Is there anywhere she has always dreamed of seeing? Any place that she ever mentioned she wanted to visit? John thought for a minute. He seemed to be struggling to come up with anything, but then his eyes lit up. Vegas? She loves going to Vegas. You think she would go there? Or isn't that too obvious? I agree it is obvious, but she has a bit of a gambling problem. I used to have to lend her money all the time to cover her debts. That is one of the reasons I broke up with her. Okay, do you think she would fly? It's only a 5-hour drive. She would fly. She hates driving far. I'm actually surprised she even has a license. She was terrified to drive anywhere more than a few blocks from her house. We won't catch her at the airport. She is probably in Vegas now. Okay, so we will go tomorrow? I'd like to get started now, John said. I'm wiped. It's late. It has been a long day for the both of us, and I would like to get some sleep first, Destiny said. She could not stand to face a long road trip starting out this late at night. She needed to get some rest, and she needed it fast. John sighed a long sigh. He nodded his head as he relaxed back in his seat. You're right. We leave first thing tomorrow. Chapter 5. Destiny decided to let John spend the night with her. It was more convenient that way, and plus she really wanted him to be with her. It was odd, but she really didn't see herself not spending the night with John. It would have seemed odd to her, even though they had only spent one night and a few days together. The way the two of them fit together, and the way they were able to relate to each other was very unique, and she found everything about John to be intriguing. They decided to swing by his place briefly, so John could pack some clothes for the trip to Vegas. They figured it might take them a little while, once they were in Vegas, to find Amy. It was a given that she would be doing some gambling, but that was true about anyone behind any closed door in that city. It was going to be like finding a needle in a haystack. Destiny went inside while John packed a few basic items. She waited in the kitchen while he did so. His house was a bit more modern than she would have pegged him for, and it was obsessively neat, with the exception of his garage, which was where he ran his single-person motorcycle repair shop. He had been doing that for almost 15 years, he said. Destiny found that admirable. It was about the same amount of time that she had been researching and writing about the world of the supernatural, but she had been interested in this world since she was a small child. John came out of the bedroom with his suitcase in hand. It was a small suitcase, and Destiny was actually surprised he even owned one. She had pictured him walking out with some old tattered duffel bag or backpack. The man was full of surprises. He had a nice blue suitcase with wheels on it. That just struck Destiny as odd when she thought of him. It almost made her laugh, but she was able to hold back the giggle. Let's go, John said. Destiny started towards the door when John stopped suddenly. He held his hand up for her to be still and silent. He stuck his nose up in the air and inhaled deeply, then he
censored
his head to the side, as if trying to hear something in the silence. He sat his suitcase down slowly, so as not to make any noise, and he walked towards the guest bedroom. The door was open and John crept through very slowly, walking over to the closet. He pointed the gun at the door and fired 2 shots about.
Censored.
Hi. Nothing happened. He glanced at Destiny. Duck. John yelled. Destiny hit the floor hard, as she felt something move the air behind her, just narrowly missing her with the force. She landed flat on her face. She had jumped so hard that she had not had time to put her arms out in front of her, and landed hard enough to knock the wind out of her. She gasped for breath, her mouth practically
Censored.
the floor. John was in the kitchen instantly, and he collided with someone. Destiny flipped over and rolled to the corner of the room, her body screaming for air and telling her to sit still. She ignored this command from her body, and so her body sent reinforcements of pain through her abdomen to tell her it meant business. It was Amy. Destiny caught a flash of her body being thrown against the wall, and then John was there with the gun, standing over her body, the gun locked and loaded with its sights right on Amy's.
Censored.
What are you doing here? John asked. I knew that you would come for me, and that you would never stop coming for me. Truth is, John, I know you better than you know yourself, Amy said. Her voice was full of sarcastic venom, and a shuddering lack of fear or humanity. A chill washed over Destiny's body. Is that so? Well, that is about the last thing you are going to know. John began to pull the trigger. It won't work, Amy said. It won't work, and you will still be the same. You can't escape this. Killing me won't make a bit of difference. You will just be left with 2 innocent lives on your hands. You and Albert are hardly innocent lives. The people I kill when I'm possessed by the shift, those are innocent lives. It has to stop. Your reign is over, John said. He pulled the trigger several times, emptying the gun. Amy had tried to move to him at the last second. She had hoped that she was fast enough, and by the time the first bullet left the chamber she was right upon him, but it was too late. He shot her at point-blank range. She collapsed on the gun and fell to the floor. Destiny pulled herself to her feet. She inhaled as the breath slowly began to return to her body. John walked over to her slowly, sat the gun down on the counter and hugged her tightly. She fell into his embrace and allowed his warmth to pull her into the relaxation. Everything felt right with the world now. Killing Amy had worked. John said within 15 minutes he could feel that he was different. He no longer felt burdened, and he no longer had the hunger. When he was a shifter, he was hungry all the time. It was a hunger that it seemed like nothing would fix. Except for the nights after the shift. Then he was completely stuffed throughout the day. After the shift he would always feel sluggish and dead tired, as if his body had not slept for days. But as soon as night started approaching he would change. He would suddenly feel like he had drank 6 5-hour energy shots, and he would be bouncing off the walls and restless. It was the weirdest feeling, and he hated it so badly. Destiny was glad that John was back to normal. He no longer had the sexy bear shifter thing going for him, but he was still the same old rough around the edges John. He was still the man she had fallen in love with. She knew it the moment he held her right after he shot Amy. It had felt like everything had come together at the perfect time and the perfect moment. The whole thing was a bit bizarre to her, because she had never really believed in that level of deep romantic love. Her world was pretty dark because for so many years, she had immersed herself in the darkest parts of the world. She hunted for and studied the things that most people were afraid of. People were so afraid of these things that most people had truly convinced themselves that they didn't exist. There were just a handful of believers, and most of them were only believers because they at some time had experienced something paranormal happening to them. The others were still somewhat skeptical, but their rational minds were still opened up enough to let the voice from childhood come inside and tell them a few stories. She liked to call these stories the what-if stories. It was the what-ifs that people told themselves to rationalize things that were not rational. John had thanked her for her help in solving this matter, and she had at first thought he was going to blow her off, but then he had picked up his suitcase and hopped in her car. He said they had planned to go to Vegas in the morning, and they were going to Vegas in the morning. Destiny couldn't help laughing at his determination. She put the car in drive and they went to her place. Back at her place, John had decided to take a hot shower. He sat his suitcase down on the floor of her bedroom and removed his clothes. Destiny found herself getting revved up, and she didn't try to hide her intentions this time. They had already opened that door. John opened the door to the master bathroom, started to close it, and then looked back at her. "Are you coming?" John said. Then he walked in and turned on the shower. Destiny peeled off her clothes and joined him for the most
censored
shower of her life. Afterwards, she slept like a baby, snuggling up to John's rippling, rugged physique. She loved the way he felt and his sweet natural scent. It made her feel safer than she had felt in longer than she could remember. With everything that had happened, she had been terrified, but now lying there in bed with John, she found that she was as peaceful as could be, and sleep came easily. The next morning, they headed off to Vegas. The road trip wasn't bad, but then the trip to Vegas usually wasn't. Destiny had taken that drive on several occasions. It was usually business. Vegas was a city with a lot of different people. It was an epicenter of entertainment, and there was a huge goth and cult population up there. She went there at least once on every book tour, and she usually stayed 2 or 3 days. It was exhausting, but it was necessary to meet all of the rabid fans. That was one of the places where she had the most fans, actually. It was a strange mecca of supernatural occurrences, too. This probably had to do with all of the people there who were interested in the paranormal, which led to them trying to contact the paranormal. This opened up a lot of doorways into our dimension that allowed paranormal activity to occur. She would have ventured to guess that the city was crawling with shifters, because for a large segment of the population it was Halloween all the time in Vegas. There were people who thought they were vampires and thought they were werewolves, but if they had ever come face to face with either, they would either crap their pants or offer themselves as a sacrifice. They checked into a hotel in Vegas and instantly hit the casinos. Destiny was not a big gambler and was uncomfortable with the whole idea, but John goaded her into it. He had a smarmy way of talking her into things. That was one of the things she loved most about him. He was able to make her take crazy risks. She lost a few hands at the blackjack table, and then she decided to quit, but John had actually won several hands, so he kept playing. He eventually came out ahead by $500. She couldn't believe his luck. "It's not luck," John said. "I studied card counting for several years when I was in high school. I found a book in the bookstore about it, and it sounded neat. So I practiced it a bunch when I wasn't working on bikes. I used to clean my friends out every damn week, until they stopped playing with me. The wussies couldn't take it." Destiny chuckled at his musings. "I learn more about you every single day," Destiny said. John smiled at her and placed her hand in his as they left the casino and went to do some sightseeing. The city street was packed, despite the crazy heat. The mercury was approaching 105 and climbing. Destiny and John were both used to the heat. It got pretty hot in Vegas this time of year, but it was not quite as hot as it often got in Phoenix. They ambled past several groups of tourists, and eventually came to an occult bookstore. Destiny found it amusing that this store was on the main strip of the city, but it was a popular tourist site, she figured. John rolled his eyes as she dragged him into the store. "Haven't we had enough voodoo stuff for a couple of days?" John said. Destiny laughed. "It is what I do." Once inside, they were greeted by an old shopkeeper. The lady looked like she had probably been old when crucifixion was invented. She was sweet and warm though, and she asked them if they were looking for anything in particular. "I'd like a pair of jeans that rubs it out for me," John said. Destiny hit him on the arm. The shopkeeper seemed confused both by what was said and by her reaction, but she kept smiling sweetly. "I'm actually wanting to see if you have any books on poltergeist activity," Destiny said. "Right this way," the old woman said. Destiny followed her to another room of the old shop, which led to another room and to an extensive section on poltergeists and hauntings. Destiny's eyes lit up. She could not believe that she had missed the store in all the times she had been to Vegas. She had been thinking about what she wanted to write her next book about, and she had always been fascinated by the poltergeist phenomena. It was such an unusual haunting, and many people were not able to tell the difference. It took a trained eye to know what you were dealing with, and many people ended up seeking help from the wrong sources because they had no idea what they were dealing with. Destiny was hoping she could help in this regard. "Wow, that is a lot of books," John said. "Yeah, I'm in heaven." John laughed and sat himself down on one of the reading chairs in the corner. He knew he was going to be here a while. That night, they decided to go to dinner at Sammy Hager's Cabo Wabo restaurant. They discovered they were both fans of the Red Rocker, all the way back to his days in Montrose. Destiny had not met many people who even knew who Sammy was, other than the guy from Van Halen. The food was amazing, and the atmosphere was impeccable. She loved looking at all of the guitars and rock and roll memorabilia everywhere. It was like the Hard Rock Cafe on steroids. It was awesome. After the dinner, they looked around a bit more, and they both bought a few hats and t-shirt souvenirs, and then they headed back to the hotel. The walk was rather romantic on the warm summer evening in the desert. Vegas came alive at night, and the lights were beautiful. They were thinking about taking in a show or two the next couple of days, if they felt like it. Right then, they were just enjoying being together. When they got back to the hotel, John instantly grabbed Destiny's hand and led her over to the bed. She sat down on the edge, a bit concerned. John looked like he had something important on his mind, and she could only speculate as to what it might be. "Destiny, baby. I want you to know the past few weeks have been the most amazing of my life. I went from a man with a problem who was completely lost in this world, to a man who feels like he finally has everything he has ever wanted right in front of him. You complete me, in a way that I never knew I needed to be completed. When I think back to my life before you, I realize that there was a huge hole missing deep inside of me. That hole is gone now. I feel like a brand new man, and I know it's all because of you." Destiny was trying to fight the tears that rolled down her cheeks, but it was to no avail. She could not help it. She knew what was happening, and what was about to happen, and there was nothing she could do to slow it down. Every little girl dreams of this moment, and you can never prepare yourself for how you are going to feel when it finally happens. Her whole body went numb with a strange mixture of excitement and paralyzing fear. Was this really happening? Was John about to do this right here and right now? The tears were uncontrollable now as they fell down her face. John wiped her eyes with the back of his hand and smiled at her sweetly. John then dropped to one knee and pulled a box out of his pocket. He opened it up, revealing the beautiful ring inside. "Destiny, will you marry me?" John asked. Destiny choked back tears. She smiled at John sweetly. "Yes. Of course I'll marry you." John placed the ring on her finger and
censored
her deeply on the lips. Destiny thought back over the events of recent days and wondered how she had ended up in this miraculous place with this miraculous man. How indeed. Thank you for reading my book. If you like this story, I think you'll enjoy my book. Bear Mate. A big favor to ask. I would really love it if you could take a few seconds to leave me a review. Thank you so much in advance. About the author. Selina Coffey is a romance writer who lives happily in London with her husband and son. She is a hopeless romantic who grew up always believing in love, and she is not ashamed to admit this. It is this belief that makes her so passionate about writing crazy love stories. A stereotypical girly girl, she loves shopping. So whenever she gets a chance and the spare cash, you will probably find her browsing online for the next pair of shoes to add to her collection. You can find her online at www.selinacoffee.com. Contact her at hello@selinacoffee.com. Closing credits. This has been Bear No More. Written by Selina Coffey. Auto-narrated using Google technology. Copyright 2024 by Lovie Books Limited. Production copyright 2024 by Lovi Books Limited.